Hare Krishna. It's been so inspiring to hear all the different aspects and the different ways in which the devotees and Priya's family knew her. And my first really strong memory of Gandharvikā comes from, even though we had association before this, comes from a walk that we took when we were at the Bascom temple. She wanted to reveal her heart to me and I to her, and it was a really, really wonderful and deep exchange that we had. And I always think of that when I think of Gandharvikā, to have had that privilege of revealing our minds and hearts to each other really has stuck with me. And as Rādhika Prem said, she worked on herself. She worked on improving herself, like that, what band, I'm not going to shout at someone today. And I saw over time, how her diamond just got more and more polished, how she just became more and more glorious in her dealings and in her understanding of the philosophy. And she took it in. You can't do what Gandharvikā did towards the end of her life if you haven't realized, if you haven't developed the rasa, the association, the relationship with the holy name. Her bones were breaking. They were shattering. I broke my pinky toe once. It was so painful. She endured that for years. She had to wear that brace constantly because her bones just couldn't hold up her head anymore. It was, I can't imagine the pain that she was in, and that she was able to focus and stay in such a loving and Krishna conscious mood, never complaining. All of us had that experience with her. Whenever we talked to her, she wouldn't even tell about the pain unless I asked. And then she would just say what it was and move on. That's what she wanted to do. I'm grateful to Srila Prabhupada and Krishna that Priya was able to find such a nice husband and get married in her presence, because that was a concern for her. She wanted to make sure you were settled. And she loved Sharad Hari Mukunda. We were a little jealous a little bit sometimes. But it was perfect. It was a perfect arrangement. And then she could let that go. Krishna was just making all of these arrangements for her so that she could really, really just detach in the most Krishna conscious way. So I won't take too much more, but we know that verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Lord Chaitanya was conversing with Ramananda Roy, and he said to him, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, of all kinds of distress, what is the most painful? And Sri Ramananda Roy replied, apart from the separation from the devotee of Krishna, I know of no unbearable happiness. And down in the purport, this is from the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Out of all kinds of desirable things experienced in the life of a living entity, association with the devotees of the Lord is the greatest. When we are separated from a devotee, even for a moment, we cannot enjoy happiness. We were all blessed to have the saint of Gandharvikā Rādhika in our midst. She wanted to serve devotees, and she served till the end by her example. She didn't even give up her service for as long as she could. She kept being the one to arrange the classes. She would she would post, okay, what the Chad reading. She did her service, that kind of service, for as long as she possibly could, beyond what I could even imagine doing because of her physical condition. But she served us all in her example to the end, and I will be eternally grateful to her for that, and for her daughter, Priya, who whenever I see her, I have that feeling that Gandharvikā is still with us. Thank you.
Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Meditam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Uta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Tam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Rādhā Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gaur Premanande Haribo. Many places in the Srimad Bhagavatam and in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings and elsewhere has mentioned that the most desirable and advantageous of all activities is to serve a devotee, and the most beneficial is to have association with pure devotees, because, as we've heard, just a moment's association or a fraction of a second can instill something in our hearts that is undeniable, which is a spark awakened that's come into a flame of desire to serve Krishna. It's naturally there, but it requires some contact with somebody whose spark has already conflagrated and is turned into a fire. And there's a way in which we don't know the qualities of a devotee sometimes until the devotee leaves the world. For instance, today while I'm sitting and listening, I was so impressed by all the Gandharvikā Radha's family members speaking. It's like, wow, they're all devotees. They all have tilak and neck feeds, and they spoke so with so many unique realizations about her, about her son-in-law, her brother-in-law spoke about how we can see that even somebody's who's not got a big position or a title of some kind, who stays in the process of Krishna consciousness. Of course, noticed by us here in the community, but on a world scale, who is that person? But when we examine her life through the eyes of so many who knew her, both in a familial relationship and in certainly our relationship, and even in our relationship, I heard so many observations today that I hadn't known about the relationship that she had with everybody, and each one of them had its own special nuance to it. And it was all in the context of her pure devotional service. And it comes out. And I was considering how important community is, because there's a way in which we're practicing devotional service. We're hearing from Bhagavad Gita and discussing the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Along with that, we have to see practical examples. Sometimes during a lifetime, we might think of somebody and say, well, they're not a pure devotee. How's it actually working? Or one might look at oneself and say, I'm not a pure devotee. How do I know this is even working? But when we're in a community and throughout the years in our association with devotees who, to one degree or another, we can take for granted. Because, oh yeah, she's here, he's here, they're always here. And then when they're not here, suddenly, which seems to happen so quickly, because when I consider these dates being bandied about here, 2019, 2004, I mean, what's it to us? At least for me, I don't really keep track of time that much. But it just seems like they were here, now they're not here. She was here, and now she's not here. And in the wake of her presence here, so many observations about her mood of pure devotional service come from all the different devotees. And juxtaposed with our long discussions on philosophy and so forth, and reading the books, then we see the practical result in someone's life. And that becomes a kind of binding agent between the philosophy and our understanding of how Krishna consciousness works. That happens in a community, because I was considering earlier how, since we're all together, and I'm unlimitedly glad we are, somehow or other Krishna put us all together, there's a way in which we see weddings, we see births, and now more and more, and those who are younger and starting to grow up, you're starting to see people leave, which when you're really young, you don't see that much usually. You just think, well, yeah, we'll probably live forever. That other thing about death is not so relevant, but when it becomes more relevant, and especially it's one of ours, then it becomes completely relevant, and also in our observations of the way, as an example, Gandharvikā Rādhika lived her life and what she meant to us while she was here, and the way she positioned herself, like right there, always. That, it reveals something to us. It starts to become solidified in our realization about how, okay, I may not notice even how much Krishna consciousness is working in my life, but as I'm staying in this little pot of a community and it's being stirred and the heat's turned up, somehow or other there's a really nice preparation that's coming out. And this is extraordinary. It's something, first of all, we have the context to understand. That is, we know, because Krishna talks about it so much that some people don't even want to hear it, because can you talk about something else besides leaving your body? Or the Srimad Bhagavatam, that's what it's about, remembering God at the time of death. And when it actually happens in our community and we hear about it, then we understand, okay, first of all, that's the goal. Second of all, it happens more quickly than you can expect. And third of all, if one is serious about the simple aspects of Krishna consciousness that we've been given and the practices that we have, that one can attain something that's legendary. The kind of departure and the ways in which not only she lived her life and didn't waste time and sat in the front row and always wanted to hear about Krishna. And I remember my dearest memories are of the times on Janmashtami when we went all day long and nobody kicked us out, even for washing the floor. We just stayed all day, and she never left. I'd sit there all day long, and we just go one bhajan after another, and then read more 10th canto, and then go more. And she was always there, and always in the same posture, which was leaning in and like, yes, yes, and then, what else? And by the way, and ask another question. And where do you find a soul like that? I mean, but then if we think about it, that's who everybody is here. And she's, if you take a pot, you take a grain out of the pot, and you say, okay, what's it like? What's the community like? I forgot. Well, it's just rice. No, it's not. Every person who's here has some special assignment by Krishna. All this, the kids coming in, being born here, the adults who get transferred here apparently because of a job change or something like that. It's all for a higher purpose. And these add up in our lives as we live. We're cultivating Krishna consciousness, we're learning verses, but we're experiencing what it's like to see the departure of our nearest and dearest. And as we've heard today, throughout her family, throughout the community, everybody who knew her loved her and felt inspired by Gandharvikā Rādhā. I had great fortune of handing over the Chad to her one fine day at Bascom Avenue, because she was ready for it, ready for anything. And she carried it forward for, I can't remember how long, 15 years? Maybe more. 15 years. And so many other services that she did. But the best of it all is just having known her, that she was one of us. She was doing what we all do, albeit in excellent form. And look at what the result was. That's practically all we need to know to be encouraged to stay the course, no matter what kinds of distractions there are in the world, as just be a Gandharvikā Rādhā. And everything's going to be fine. Not only that, it's so joyous to be in that service mood your whole life. And even if you're extremely ambitious, this is the place for you, because you can always push harder. You can always learn more, teach more classes, or scale up whatever you want to scale up. Nobody's going to stop you. Krishna will just empower you more and more, as he did her. If you want to get into your rounds more and more, you can do that. We miss her dearly, and I can say that with this memorial, it's like I was thinking of other analogies, grinding some sandalwood. The qualities come out more and more, and then it pervades the environment. And then it's not like an ordinary scent. When we hear about a devotee, a pure devotee, someone who left the world successfully and throughout her life had integrity in every way that we know of, then that memory becomes something that enlivens our senses in Krishna consciousness and gives us this faith of practicing in community, helping one another. And it also reminds me acutely how important it is to appreciate the devotees while they're here. because it's easy to take, again, I said, for granted, but we don't know how long we have. And it's the best of community when we can have that sense that everybody who's here has that special designation of being extremely dear to Krishna because they're devotees. So we can remember her example, the way she wouldn't criticize, the way she would put full focus into what's most important, taking shelter of the holy name. And then we can apply that as much as possible with one another in this community that Krishna has given us, so that we can also become pure devotees and have the same way of leaving the world that Krishna advocates for in both the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita and elsewhere. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmi Nrsingadev, if you so desire, please empower us to keep the mood and spirit of pure devotional service that our dear Gandharvikā Rādhika Devī Dāsī exhibited in her life close to our hearts. May we always remember her as a great champion of the cause of chanting Hare Krishna and spreading the teachings of Bhagavad Gita all over the world. And may we never take for granted any of the devotees in our midst. And may we never take any of the time that we have left, whatever that may be, for granted in our lives. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone who agrees with this prayer, in whole or in part, please say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
And now, Prikishori asked me to sing Jaya Nilo Premadana, which is a beautiful song that we sing when we're feeling separation from the great Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. And it's expressing a lament that what will I do without the association, in this case, Gandharvikā Rādhā,